Hi friends, welcome to the recap of Miss Universe 2025. My name is Dani. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much too for all of those prayers and wishes because I've been so sick during the week of Miss Universe. I really appreciate all of that. And please don't forget, if you are preparing for a competition, check out my free pageant prep course. That is linked in the description. It's packed with resources for you. I have way too many thoughts about this show, to be honest, because there's so much going on. I'm probably going to have to create some sort of follow-up episode. And by the way, if you haven't seen my recent episode about my kind of initial thoughts and some footage that I found post-pageant, you should check that one out as well. First things first, honestly, I was really surprised by the production. I had such high hopes for what the opening would look like, especially considering the shows that Nawat has produced for Miss Grand International, for Miss Universe Thailand this past year. Obviously, we want Miss Universe to be its own thing, but I had these high hopes because we saw things like horses flying in from the ceiling. We saw queens getting lifted into the air for his other productions. And I don't know, I was glad that we got a larger stage than we did last year. I was really glad that the lighting, I think, was much improved. But I made this comment as well for Cosmo. I think big stages are great, but sometimes they're so big that they're swallowing up the contestants. I love that we had a live performer, but I feel like there was just so much walking because we had to use all that time to get the contestants loaded on stage, and they felt so far away, like they felt so distant. Our first cut of the show was the top 30, and let me tell you how shocked I was that we didn't see Turks and Caicos and we didn't see Argentina. Excuse me? Also, I would have loved to have seen Kyrgyzstan or Kazakhstan in that top 30 as well. Those would have been, I think, some good surprises. For swim this year, I felt like the swimsuits looked kind of Thai inspired with the floral details on the side. That was super cute. I actually really love that part of the show. Now, since there's a lot of issues here with scoring and transparency, I am going to share with you my favorite performances that I would have been scoring between the 7 to 10 range if we had a 0 to 10 score. So these would be the ladies that I would potentially want to see move on into a top 12. Although I have a few more that are like a little bit beyond the 12, but in a real scoring scenario, I would include those extras and kind of let the cards fall where they may, dependent on other judges' impression of the queens. First, Chile came out strong. She was stunning. I loved her here. She's a consistent performer. I definitely thought she should have been moving on. Love the straight hairstyle on her as well. I think this is one of the best looks that she had throughout the competition. China had the crowd cheering for her and she deserved it. She has been a consistent performer. I was so glad to see this for her. She had a phenomenal walk and performance here, brought great energy. I would be advancing her. She would get actually one of my top scores within that top 5 realm for this area of competition. Colombia, no notes, loved her, loved the swimsuit on her. She's stunning. I would be advancing her. Côte d'Ivoire nailed her turn, okay? Also, she would be getting one of my top 5 scores, like really, really close to that 10. I'm sorry, as a judge, I don't give out 10s, but she would be so close to that because of the energy she brought in this performance. Croatia was just so gorgeous. I don't think that this suit color suited her that well, but I don't know what the selection process was or what options that she had available to her. Sometimes you don't get all the options, but regardless, she was gorgeous and I loved her. France, yes, I thought that this was a great walk, especially because I talked about her shoulders. I feel like they were more relaxed here. I also like the variation in her posing at that last minute. Those last seconds really, really count and they really help to influence a judge. Guadeloupe, love her so much. However, I do think her prelim swimsuit performance, something about it was a little bit more magical for me. Like there was more of a moment in prelims, but I still love her here and she would still be advancing. India, yes, love her. Such a strong performer. Also just love her hair. It was so beautiful. She is totally hair goals. She's stunning and just had a really, really great, turn combination. Her angles, the smile, she was fun to watch. Malta, I was so glad to see her there. She's not from a Sash Factor country, but she totally deserved it. She's a consistent performer. She was fantastic here and just brought me everything that I expected to see from her that we saw in prelims to finals. Universe Latina, I think she had one of the strongest swimsuit walks for this edition. She would be up there in my top 5 score realm. I thought she was so fabulous. I just love it. The facials, the poses, the turns, everything that she does, she nails it. Philippines, that opening pivot turn combo that she's been doing and practicing. I saw this across Instagram, and honestly, she nailed it. And she was just like walking, and then she gets to this moment at the end, and then she kind of she suspends. I'll say she suspends, and then at the last moment she turns, looks, smiles at the audience. I literally wrote down, that was her moment. Oh my gosh, it gave me chills. She would also have had one of my top 5 scores for swim. Right after her was Puerto Rico, and whoa, oh my gosh, I honestly don't even know how to compare the two because they just both brought something different. The spin turn that she did with the hair flip was perfectly executed, just like how it was in prelims. Also, love her unique poses, the variation that she had at the end. Honestly, her and Philippines at that point, I mean, pretty close tie for score. Like, they were both so great. Thailand, she removed her turns. What did I say? I'm so glad she played it safe here. This was a time where I'm like, yeah, we can't make any mistakes. So she came out, she just did her walk, she did her posing at the end, little flip before she exited. She knows she can serve face. She did that. Just fantastic. Yes. Very proud of USA starting that streak again. Here we go. She did her own signature pivot combo. It was great. It was wonderfully executed. I think she did fantastic. I fully saw her placing this year. Although there were doubters, I knew that we would be able to get to at least this point, but I also knew a top 12 placement would be really tough. Venezuela, she's just so gorgeous. Love her, love that smile. And I love how she just nails her classic closed leg, like her little T stance pose at the end, like her body, like the curve in her body and the way she can nail it and her little like smile. She knows what she's doing. She's doing a fabulous job. Now let's talk about evening gown. I want to talk notable performances, ladies that I feel like deserve to be mentioned, and then also who would I be giving top scores to. Now, let me tell you, as a judge for finals night, for something like Miss Universe, there are no mistakes that can be made here. The gown needs to suit the contestant. The gown needs to compliment her and show her off and be like, wow, like I need to be impressed by the gown. It's a competition. Also, the beauty needs to be there. Obviously, they're all beautiful contestants, but she needs to be her best self that night. And that particular hair and makeup styling, it's got to work with the gown and work for her. Not only do I need a queen that can walk well in her gown, but I need a queen who's going to deliver a performance. So we're talking about facials, poses, turns. She needs to create a moment if I were to select her as Miss Universe. First contestant I want to talk about, I think great opening here with Chile. I loved this gown. Lately, I've been loving the pinks, the purples, the blues, the pastels. Beautiful. Great choice for her. Not sold on the hairstyle. She's stunning and she serves face all day. But this hairstyle, I just didn't feel like it necessarily like complemented the gown. It didn't love that. I think she did a good job. I didn't feel necessarily a moment though from her, so she would have been like on my personal edge there. I think Guadalupe's gown change made a lot of sense. It was very like universe with the star designs on it. However, I wish she would have let all the hair out, which I don't know if that was even possible after slicking it for swim. But I love big hair. I love all the volume. So that would have been a styling change, but I still loved her performance. She's always serving face and all of her facials. She's fabulous. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Was Mexico wearing an aoyai? I thought that that's what that was. That would have been my interpretation of that. I was so confused by this gown. To be competing at Miss Universe, I understand wearing something that represents your own culture, or maybe something that's like a mixture of cultures and you just want to be like seen as universal. I get that. But to wear a dress that would be commonly associated with another culture just didn't make any sense to me. I didn't think that there was anything wrong with her walk and performance. Nothing like, oh gosh, can't believe she did that. But there was no moment there for me in that walk. So I was very surprised to see her advance to the top 5. Puerto Rico, wow, oh my gosh. I mean, this was a moment. Love the gown, love the feathers, but it's a look that I just don't want to see repeated again and again. We saw Chelsea Manalo win in the white gown with the feathers. We saw the past 2 Miss Worlds, white gown with the feathers. I've seen this look recirculated and recycled so many times. When I saw her step out in this, I was like, oh, I mean, she looks stunning. I'm just tired of the same look, if that makes sense. But I still really, really loved her performance. I just loved it. I love her smile, her facial transitions. She's stunning. I was also very confused about Venezuela's gown. Don't get me wrong, it was stunning. I didn't think that the timing of the removal of those feathers that she had on her hips was timed in the right way. She released it so early. She didn't know, I'm sure. We were only looking at her really from the side. It wasn't like a moment with the camera. But when I saw the gown, I just didn't understand like the dragon details. It reminded me of details that we see in like Chinese art and architecture. So I just didn't understand the meaning behind it. Also, I noticed with Venezuela, as much as I absolutely love her, she was kind of like moving her lips around, almost like her lip gloss was sticking. I wish that the facial transitions had been smoothed out a bit, but as y'all know, watching the channel, big fan of her throughout the competition, so I was not upset that she moved forward. China, another contestant I've been loving, but we saw a very similar look to Puerto Rico, so I was like, no. Still a great performance though. Who in the world thought about Bini Bini Filipinas 2022's national costume show when you saw Philippines step on stage? Tell me that you saw the ghost horse. The moment she entered, that was the first thing that I thought about, but it looked beautiful. And we got to see this side shot where she did this turn. I just love this. This is different from anything else she wore. And I gasped. I was like, oh, because it kind of gave me that Catriona moment. Like when Catriona stepped on stage, when I was in that auditorium, when she walked out, she looked like the gown was on, it looked like lava. She looked like she was on fire. We were all like, it still gives me chills thinking about that moment. And when I saw Atisa, I was like, oh my gosh, like it's like a Catriona jaw drop moment. So she walked out, she looked so beautiful. She had an incredible just like moment. The camera kind of lingered on her a little bit here. Honestly, I loved it. Couldn't have asked for more. This is the type of stuff that I want to see at Miss Universe. Like she was putting on a show. Like she was showing up and I loved it. She would have been getting one of my top scores. Normally, I love Thailand's gowns, but this gown choice actually really surprised me. I just feel like we've seen more unique styles from her. I didn't love the light blue color on her. I just didn't feel like it did that much. I did really love the shoulder sash though. I thought that was really beautiful. But for her, it was the walk, it was the facials at the end. She definitely had a moment there, all like with her smile, the audience just, I appreciate the performance more than I appreciated the gown style. Everybody was doing a great job, right? Like there were moments for me at that point, the height was what Philippines brought. And then we had Cote d'Ivoire. Oh my gosh. She would have gotten my high score for gown because of the entrance, the drop of the opera coat, the walk, the little pose she gave us in the center with that turn. And then she kept walking forward. Like she was a moment. Also, I really loved more of that 90s style rolled updo that she had. It reminded me of the movie Beautician and the Beast, if you've ever seen it, or if you're like a fan of The Nanny, like I was growing up and watching it. I loved Fran Drescher, and then I loved her in that movie, and she had this like fabulous updo when there was this scene, when there was this ball, and it was just incredible. But it reminded me a lot of Cote d'Ivoire's final glam, but she was fabulous. She was glowing, gorgeous. She was the moment. Now let's talk about the top 5 because I feel like this is where things are about to get very controversial. I think that of course we need more transparency with scoring, but I also think we need a little bit more clarification. So let me give you an example. When I judged Mrs. Montana America, not only were we giving scores for gown and for interview, they actually broke down those scores. So for example, for gown, a contestant might receive a score for styling, for confidence, for her walk and posing as an example. I think if we had scoring that was a little bit more specific, like at Mrs. America, that it would make it a lot more clear to judges who they should be selecting as the winner based off of performance. And that's something else I want to mention in this episode. When I judge, when I watch, I really believe that performances, great performances, should equate to placements. And I feel like, of course, we can have different favorites because I always have more than one favorite. When things feel strange in pageant results, it's usually because audiences who usually watch pageants feel that performance did not equate to placement. In order to put my own theory to the test about how this would work, I decided to create a scoring rubric, a very simple one. Literally the score was between 0 and 1. So the first part of the scoring is the delivery. So her volume, her pacing, her level of confidence, all of that stuff should be considered. Then we could have a score for the content, like what is she actually talking about? Is she providing personal personal experience? Is she providing evidence? Is she inspiring? All of those things I think should have a place in scoring. And then the last part of scoring, which should be really important, is did she answer the question? And you can really score these very easily from 0, 0.5, and 1, and that would really simplify the process. So let's apply that scoring to these answers. Of course, there's always going to be some subjectivity for things like this, but I feel like it kind of gives a clearer example of what a winning answer would look like. So Thailand went first. Thailand's question was, if you win Miss Universe and are given the chance to speak in front of the UN, which global issue would you talk about and why would you choose that? And she says, if I were to speak in front of the UN, I would choose women's equality because all of us deserve respect, kindness, and we deserve the same respect in the workplace. And she encourages everyone to raise their voice for women's equality. Thank you. So this really got the crowd going, but let's think about that scoring rubric. So first of all, I think she had a very confident delivery. She wasn't stumbling over her words. She was making eye contact. All of that was great. So I would give her a 1 for that. Then let's talk about the content. I think she had a lot of positive messaging in this answer. That was great. She specifically addressed women's equality would be the issue. Wonderful. But then that last part of the scoring rubric, did she actually answer the question? I don't believe she fully answered it. Let's go back to it. Let's go back to the question. They were asking her what issue would she choose and why. She identified the issue, but she never explained why she would choose it. So for that, I'm not going to give her a 0. I would give her a 0.5. So that gives her overall a 2.5. Philippines question. As a global ambassador or a citizen, what will be your contribution to humanity? And she said, I come from a very poor background. I started pageants at the age of 10 to put myself through school and lift my family out of poverty. If there's anything that I want to show to the universe, I'm here right now. I'm standing as Miss Universe because I was able to get myself out of any situation because I was hardworking, persistent, and I fight for what I want. Ooh, okay. So first and foremost, extremely confident delivery. Absolutely loved it. Number 2, her content. She shared something personal about herself. She was also on brand by using the word universe in this answer. And then she wrapped everything up with a very descriptive and empowering message of hope. Love that. Great. So I would give her a 1 for that portion of the score as well. And then what about actually answering the question? They asked her, what would be your contribution to humanity? And she directly addressed this from the top of the question where she says, I want to be hope for people. And then she explained how she would do so, or like why she is that hope. So for me, she would get a 1, 1, and 1 for each area. And so she would get that full score of 3. Venezuela's question. In a world where cultural differences can separate people, how would you choose your platform to promote empathy and understanding between different cultures? Venezuela said, I thank God that I've been given the opportunity to live in different continents in the world. I have a broad view of different cultures and an understanding how to have empathy, how to communicate, and how to break those barriers of language. I believe that this platform gives us access to every corner of the world, and it teaches us that us as women with a voice, being a role model, it is our future with the elders and the children and the people that hear us that we depend on making the difference. First, how was the delivery? Beautifully said, confident. She took her time. She didn't sound rushed. She wasn't adding in a lot of filler words. It was great. How was the meat? How was the messaging in this? It was lovely. She said a lot of great and inspiring things. I love that she also used personal experience, talking about how she's lived on other continents. And I really like the statement about her breaking down those barriers of communication through empathy. That was fantastic. But did she answer the question? They asked her, how would you choose your platform to promote empathy and understanding? And so really the key to directly answering that question is addressing first the method that you would use to make that selection. Would you choose what to promote because you have a personal connection to it? Would you choose what to promote because it's an issue facing women around the world? Would you choose to promote it because you feel like it's the biggest issue in society today? So I feel like she didn't fully answer that question if we're being super nitpicky, which we have to be because overall the ladies did a fantastic job. So because of that, I would give her a 0.5 on our scoring rubric for did she answer the question. That gives her a total of 2.5. In your perspective, what are the challenges of being a woman in 2025, and how would you use the title of Miss Universe to create a safe space for women around the world? She said, as a woman, I would put my voice in the power and the service of others, because nowadays we are here to speak up, to make change, and have everything here because we are women, and the brave ones that stand up are the ones that will make history. So I don't know if you caught that part there, but she said the brave ones that'll stand up are gonna make history, which is kind of like a wink wink moment to the judges, in my opinion. I assume the judges are aware of what's been going on. Hello, she was the contestant that stood up. So she's saying, hey, I stood up, I'm gonna make history. And so it was kind of just this little like innuendo about who she is and what had happened earlier in the week. I feel like it was a reference to that. Now let's go back to our rubric. How was the delivery? I don't feel like the delivery was that confident. She would pull back her volume sometimes as if she was just unsure what she was about to say next. And I don't feel like the delivery was that confident. So I would have given her a 0.5 for the delivery. What about the meat of her messaging? I think that honestly, she was saying some nice and empowering words, like really inspiring for women. That was good. So I would give her a 1 for that. But then did she answer the question? Let's go back to it. They asked her, what are the challenges of being a woman in 2025, and how would she create safe spaces? So I don't think she addressed any of the challenges that women in 2025 are facing. She didn't call out a single issue there or a single challenge. And so because of that, I would have given her a 0.5. So that would give her a total of 2 for onstage question. Cote d'Ivoire's question. Education today focuses on knowledge, but not always on emotional skills. What emotional skills do you think should be taught to every child in school, and why? And she said, as a woman that has a foundation on education, I think it is important that we teach young girls to love themselves. That is why my slogan is assume your identity, because if you love yourself, if you have confidence, you can walk into the world and you can shine. So I urge every young man and every young woman to love yourself first. Be who you want to be and shine. This was so well done. Number 1, the delivery was incredibly confident. She came across as very self-assured. So I would give her a 1 for that. And then let's talk about the meat of it. She referenced the work that she's already doing in her country. So I love that personal connection. She also had a positive, powerful, uplifting message. So I would give her a 1 on that scoring part of the rubric. And then lastly, did she answer the question? They asked her, what emotional skill do you think should be taught to every child in school, and why? And I do feel like she answered that question. She really narrowed in there on the importance of self-love and confidence, and that when children have that, they're going to be able to, go out, accomplish their dreams, all that stuff. So for that, I would also give her a 1, and that would give her a total of 3. If we take those scores, Mexico would have had a 2, and then Thailand and Venezuela would both have had a 2.5, and then Cote d'Ivoire and Philippines would have been tied for a 3. So right now we're tied for our winner and our first runner-up position. Then let's move on to the next round of questions. If you win the title of Miss Universe tonight, how would you use this platform to empower young girls? They all got the same question. First to go was Thailand, and she said, I believe anyone who's gone through struggles in life can get back up. It's not about how you fall, but how you rise. And I would encourage you all to be your own Shiro, to light the light within yourself and light it in others, and that we can come together to lift each other up. The world will be a much better place. And I encourage you to never fear. I am standing here as your next Miss Universe and hope to be. So I think the delivery was very, very confident. I think she had an overall nice messaging here, but they were asking, how would you use this platform to empower young girls? So essentially she shared a message instead of sharing about an action that she would take to share that message. And I feel like that is the important distinction. And that's actually a distinction that I want to talk about, that I see a lot of contestants, I think, make that mistake. They share a message and it's a great message, but they never actually address the question head on and directly by being specific about, well, how are you going to really share that message? And so for that reason, I would have given her a 0.5. So that would give her a total of 2.5 for her second question. Philippines' answer was, I work with an organization called the Allen Academy, where we work with young people to provide them opportunities to make them realize it doesn't matter what your life circumstances are. It doesn't define where you will go. I want to continue working with Allen Academy on a bigger platform like Miss Universe to pursue that, making sure that people that come from low income backgrounds are given the same opportunities as everyone else. So she identified how she would be empowering young women by specifically also working with an organization. So because of this, she had a confident delivery. That's one. Now, her next part of her score, she had great content in there. She backed up her answer. And then the last part of it, did she answer the question? Of course she did. She directly told everybody how she would be accomplishing this goal. So she gets a perfect score. She gets a 3. Venezuela said, education and communication go hand to hand to influence positive activity from the girls, from the children, from everyone that watches this platform. I am standing here because with my life experiences, I have been able to become the person I wanted to be. And this is the representation of a woman that's determined with her conviction. And that is what I want all girls to search for. Number 1, delivered it very, very well. She's a very talented speaker. Number 2, she had some great information in there. I thought that she delivered some beautiful messaging about the importance of education and communication and, like being the woman that you've always wanted to be. That's beautiful. But number 3, did she directly address how she would accomplish this? She told us all the things that she wanted to do, but she didn't ever really directly tell us how she'll accomplish this. So because of that, I would have docked a little bit of a point. So we would be totaling out at 2.5 for Venezuela. Mexico. As Miss Universe, I will say to them, believe in the power of your authenticity. Believe in yourself, your dreams matter, your heart matters, and never let anyone make you doubt your worth, because you're worth everything and you're powerful and your voice needs to be heard. So number 1, did she deliver? Yes, I think that she did here. This was a much more confident answer and delivery. You can see that she felt a lot better about this question than the first one. Number 2, how was her messaging? How was the content? I think great, positive, inspiring. It was good. Number 3, they asked her, how will you empower these young girls? And she said, I will tell them, meaning we can infer that this is the message that she would be sharing if she's Miss Universe when she's going out to events, right? So whatever she's going to be interacting with young girls, she said, I will tell them. And number 3, did she answer the question? I do feel like she answered the question this time. They asked, how would you empower these young girls? And she said, I will tell them, meaning, and we can infer reasonably here that this is the message that she would directly be sharing with these young girls when she's going out on appearances. Of course, she didn't specify the type of appearance, but she was directly addressing the group that we're talking about in this answer. And this is a very, very common strategy for a winning answer. I've talked about this in other episodes. If they ask you something like they did at Miss USA this year, like what would you do addressing a room full of 15-year-old girls today? Miss New Jersey USA directly addressed that group. And that's exactly what Mexico did here. So this is actually a very effective form of a winning answer that we see again and again and again. So you could say she fulfilled all 3 requirements and came out with a score of 3. Cote d'Ivoire was last, and she said, as an ambassador and as Miss Universe, I would want to be the face of representation of a new generation that mixes cultures, that mixes modern and traditional. I want to be the face of a new era of women that are bold leaders, that are unapologetic about who they are. If I'm Miss Universe, I want to be a role model for the young girls and let them know that you can make it. Go in the rooms where you don't feel like you belong, shine, and make sure you assume your identity. So very, very confident answer here. I would give her a 1 for that. And then let's talk about the meat in there. I think there was a lot of great content here. She also wrapped everything up by throwing in the assume your identity that she shared with us a little bit earlier to kind of like put a bow on the package. But did she answer the question? If we're going to be very technical, she didn't head on answer the question. She shared about all the things that she would like to be and like to do as Miss Universe, but she never identified the way that she she would go about accomplishing this. Would you be the new face of a nonprofit organization? Do you want to make appearances in schools? Do you want to pass legislation? How exactly would you want to empower these young girls? And I feel like if you're really going to be a judge that's a stickler on answering the question, which let me tell you, some judges are, then she could have lost a point there. So I would be giving her like a 0.5 for that. So a total of 2.5. Then what you can do is tally all the scores from the first and second question, and let's look at those in order. So if we look at the totals, Cote d'Ivoire with a 3 and a 2.5, that would equal 5.5. We have Mexico with a 2 and a 3, that would equal 5. We have Philippines with a 3 and a 3, that would equal 6. We have Thailand with a 2.5 and a 2.5, that equals 5. And then we have Venezuela with a 2.5 and a 2.5, also equaling 5. So in that scenario, if we took the averages, and I was just one judge, right? So obviously there would be many judges. If we use me as an example, my winner of the night by scores would have been Philippines, and then Cote d'Ivoire would have been first runner up. Then last we would have ties for Mexico, Thailand, and Venezuela, and that could be worked out amongst the scores of the other judges, which would essentially serve as tiebreakers, which is why you need multiple judges. Now you could also further have a tiebreaker scoring system. So like, let's say that everybody is dead tied, which I've seen that at a pageant before. Then you have a process of tiebreakers. A lot of pageants will use the overall interview score as your first tiebreaker, and then like that's how we're gonna break things up. And if that doesn't work out, because I've seen that before, sometimes pageants will defer to the head judge for the night, and that head judge, their ranking of the final placements is what ends up standing. Now others would refer back to an overall score. So like, what's everybody's combined score from prelims and finals, or what were their combined scores just from that night at finals? So there's different ways of having these tiebreakers, but I really believe that this process of tiebreakers is really, really important. Based off of how I would have scored things, Mexico would not have advanced to a top 12 for me. So anything beyond that would have been like null and void. It wouldn't have even have mattered. But I'm wondering with what we've seen, first of all, we saw that Natalie said, well, Thailand was my winner. So that's one judge where Mexico wasn't the winner. I don't know about the other ones, but I'm curious if when Mexico made that statement about standing up and being like a woman who's remembered in history, I'm wondering if the other judges were thinking back to everything that's happened during the week, and if that at all would have influenced their decision at the end and how they would have ranked or how they would have scored her based off of what happened. Like, did they look at this from the standpoint of like, well, after everything that's happened, she should be the one that wins? I've seen crazier things happen. I've heard crazier reasons why a judge selected a certain contestant in pageants because it is so subjective. But that's why I really think that it's helpful whenever we have scoring, and especially when we're talking about stakes like this, like Miss Universe, I think it's really useful to have some sort of scoring rubric. It's really unfortunate to see how all of this is playing out, and just to see that so much of it is so avoidable. There's no reason why during a season of Miss Universe that we had so many issues going on, that there had to be so many public statements that were made. It just should not be happening at all. I'm just like sad for the contestant experience. I think it's crazy that we didn't have, not that I noticed, an accounting firm for the pageant this year verifying those results. You have to have that independent third party. You cannot just have people within the organization tabulating the scores for Miss Universe. This is not a county fair pageant. There's a lot more on the line here, and it needs to have verified results. Because of all of this mismanagement, the people that are suffering and that are experiencing crazy amounts of online harassment and bullying are inevitably the contestants, the staff, the judges, like all of these people, and none of this ever should have happened. I don't think that this overall was what you could say would be a successful edition of Miss Universe. I think it's just an edition that we got through. Miss Jamaica fell off the stage, and people said the day after, oh, she's totally fine. But then now her team released a statement saying that she'll be in the ICU for another 7 days. I'm sorry, the ICU? How is she fine and in the ICU? I don't even know what to say in this episode, or really how to adequately wrap it, because there's just so much craziness going on. But anyways, I will end it. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you supporting the channel and being patient as I have been a little slower in my process getting these episodes out to you. But thank you so much, and I will see you at the next episode.